look at on how we can create users outside our database in Postgre. So these users are going to have access to the database, and we're going to assign the users some roles. This can be done both on the graphical user interface, and also you can assign these roles using PowerShell or command prompt. If you have Linux laptop, you can use the terminal, and if you have Windows, you can use command prompt, PSQL shell, or PowerShell. So we are going to create the user first using the graphical user interface, Postgre administration. So here you're going to see the version of Postgre, and just below it there's a login or group roles. This is the tool that we are going to use to create our users. So you first right click on create login or group. Once you're here, you're going to give a username. This is the name of the user that you want to access a database that you would create. So I'm going to give a username of a group 1. So this is the name of that group 1 member, group 1 user, and then I'm going to give a definition. Here's where you give the group member or the user a password. So I'm going to give him a password, and you can also assign the date of expiry of his or her account. When his session is going to end, then the password is going to be revoked, and he won't have access to the database if the duration you've assigned has elapsed. So I'm going to just adjust this to probably May, September 2020 on date 24th, and then this shows the number connection limit. So it shows this one is unlimited, but you can assign the limit. Probably if you want 10 users, you can write in 10. I'm just gonna leave it like that. And we have the membership. So in this group, how many members can be share the same privileges that you have given group 1 user? So what you need to do, you're going to also give privileges to this user. Probably you want him to log into a database, and then give him a super user role. And by super user, that means he can create databases, he can also update catalogs, and I'm going to give him create roles, meaning he can create other users to log into the database. I'm not gonna give him this role of creating roles, but come to think of it again, I want to give him all the privileges because he's a super user. I want him to be able to replicate and do backups. He can also create other databases and create other user by creating roles, and he's a super user. So I'm going to membership, I'm going to create other users and assign the same membership roles. But as per now, I'm going to leave this membership. I just want him to have all the privileges. And then you can look at security, the SQL language. So I'm going to click on save. So you can see I have my user here. So once I create a database, I can be able to assign this user access to the database. So if I come here and create a database, I'm gonna give this database name of let me just give it KWDB, and I want the owner to be group 1 user, so he's able to own this database and probably create other users who they can share the same data within this database. And then the definition, I'm going to give this a default PG default, and I'm gonna click on save. to also show, so my database has been created, and you can just be able to look into the database, probably look at the schemas. So what's really has to be done on this database that you have created, because I'm going to deal with geodata or shapefiles, I need to create extensions for shapefile. And that means right now this database that I have created is not a spatial database, because we don't have functions for spatial database. You can see it's totally blank. So if you want to give if you want to create your database to be a spatial database, what you need to do is write a query or a language which pgadmin understands, and I'm going to show you what to type for you to pull in functions that can be able to help you to import shapefiles, rasters, and geopackage files, which can be able to be stored in your database. So once you're here, you can create an extension by the name postgres. So what this does is that when you write this function, you are able to pull spatial commands into your database. You'll see in just a few minutes. So once I execute this query, I'm gonna execute this, and once my execution is done, we're going to look at the functions options, if we are able to if we've pulled functionalities to import shapefiles, raster. So right here the query returned successfully in 25 seconds. So I'm going just to go in my database, and in here I'll go to schemas, and then I can look at the FTS templates, and just below the FTS templates we have the functionalities or the functions. So if I refresh these, I'm going to see if I click on functions, I can be able to see a variety of functions that will enable me to make this a spatial database rather than any other normal database that cannot be able to accept coordinates. And if you're using so you can see here we have a lot of functions and extensions just to help you to import. For example, we have the boolean, we have the integers, it looks at the geometry. The database also accepts the geography, the geometry of your data. So once this is done, we know that our DB is now spatially referenced, and it's now a spatial DB, and now we can be able to work with these and probably pull a shapefile. So I just want to pull a shapefile in this database. So I'm going to click on postgres because we created an extension for postgres. And if you don't know where postgres shapefile import or export manager is found, you just click on your start menu. Once you're on your start menu, you will be able to see PostgreSQL. You navigate to Postgres version that you have installed. For example, I have Postgres version 12. In here you're going to see the installation app, Postgres itself, and then you can be able to click on postgres. Once you type in postgres on your search bar, you're going to see a blue round globe icon, the app that you use to import your chef files into your database. So I'm going to stick with what I had, do my connections here. So what you're required to do is make a connection to your database using the PostgreSQL file import and export manager. So I'm going to view connection details. I'm going to import my username, which is Postgres database, Postgres, and my password, and I'm going to give the database I want to import my data, which is KW database. So it's going to be KWDB, and I'm gonna hit on OK. So connecting has been done successfully. So what I need to do is navigate to my PC and add a file that is going to be imported in here. So I'm going to add my constituency share file. I'm also going to give it a spatial reference ID, which is 4321, and I'm going to import these. So you're able to pull in as many share files you want, and also going to add another share file, which is going to be my administration county. I'm gonna add these open, so I can also give a geometry for this share file because I want to import these. It's gonna be 4321. It's supposed to be 43226. No, it's 21. I'm gonna import these constituencies. So I want to import create mode selected for existing public constituencies. So I'm going to assign a spatial 432 spatial reference ID here, and I'm going to import these. Looks like I have some it's going to delete these. I'm gonna assign these 4326. Let me see if it's gonna pick these. Import. So connecting password PostgreDB KWD. Okay, my connection. I need to view my connection. So it's okay. I'm just gonna import view connection PostgreDB. Make sure that you key in your username and password correctly, else it won't work. I'm going to give my DB as KWDB. I'm going to test these, and I'm connected, so I think I must have had a bad connection, internet connection. I'm going to now add a file which is going to be the Kenya administrative counties. I don't want these, I want some point data, so I want to do both polygon and points. So I'm going to do probably the Kenya population data. I'm going to click on these, open it, assign it a spatial reference ID, which is going to be 4321 if I'm not wrong, and import it. I'm going to refresh the schemas and see if my data that I've imported has reflected on my database. So I'm going to click on tables, and here it is. We have my constituencies and populated areas. So if I want to view this data, I'll right click and click on all rows. So this is going to pull my data on this data output window, and I'm able to see the rows and columns of my data. So once I have created the user who was group 1 users, and I assigned him privileges of being a super user and creating roles, so I want to create membership for this user. So if I have like 2 other more users, I'm going to create the user. So I'm going to give this user 2. I'm going to give him the definition, password. I'm also going to assign privileges to my user. I want him to log in. He's also supposed to be a super user, but I'm going to deny him roles of creating other users. He's going to initiate and do backups, and creating database, I'm going to deny him the role of creating other databases, and save this. I also need another user, create group role. So it depends on how many users are in the team. I have user 3. I'm going to also give my user a password and assign him. He can log in, but he cannot be a super user. He can create roles, which I'm going to deny him. So he's just going to can be able to log in and inherit the parent roles. Probably inherit parent roles. I'm going to deny him this, but he can be able to inherit backups and create database. Yeah. So I'm gonna save this. So once I have my users and I want them to share the same database with my group 1 user, you can decide to look at the properties, right click on user group 1, and you can assign the membership to user. So if I want group 1 to share the members, I will let him share member user 2. I will also want him to user 3 to be a member of group 1, user 2 to be a member of group 1, and user 3 to be a member of group 1, and I'm gonna hit on save. And since group 1 has access to the Kuwait database or the KWDB, I'm going to let him the two are able to access what group 1 user is able to access in the database, because they share the same, they have the same members to this database. So these users are outside the database, but they are outside the database of KWDB, but since group 1 is a member of the KWDB and he shares the same roles, he has members, so they are able to inherit whatever he's able to do in the Kuwait database. Alright, so I also want to show you on how you can do or assign these privileges when you're using the command prompt or PowerShell. And this is the PowerShell I'm talking about. So what you need to do here is log into your database. So what you key in is PSQL. Make sure it's in caps lock off, PSQL. I'm gonna give a user here. So I want the user to be Postgres, and we are on localhost. It's been created here. So, and when you want to describe these users, what you do is you click on describe users, and you can see I have my test user here, and my test user is also here on the graphical user interface. Now when you're using the PowerShell, you're able now to create these commands, and they will reflect exactly on your graphical user interface. So right now I want to check what are the roles for the test user, or we can also decide to create another database using the PowerShell, and then in this database I'm going to assign a user to the database I'm going to create. So if I want to create a new database, I'll hit on create database, and this database is going to be MyDB. I'm going to create a database which is going to be database MyDB, and I'm gonna end this with semicolon. I'm gonna hit on enter, which is going to take some time, and then once you execute these SQL languages, whatever you key in on your PowerShell or your command prompt, or if you want access to these databases, whatever you key in is what will be seen on your graphical user interface. So once this has been executed here, if I counter check that on my database, I should be able to see my database, which is already created here. So, and I also want to give to create a user who's gonna use this database, MyDB. So I'm going to create user, my user, let me just say, I'm not going to replace that, user Chris on database MyDB, because I want to create a user who's going to be in this database MyDB. So you need to be careful first. So if you want to create a user in here in this database, we have to connect first. We connect to the MyDB, connect to MyDB, and I'm gonna end this with a semicolon. I'm gonna hit OK, and now I'm connected to MyDB. So I want to create a user in here. Create user, Chris, who's going to have a password. So I'm going to give him with password. He's gonna use his name as a password, so I'm just gonna give him a password of Chris. Make sure these are in of password. Chris. I don't know what is happening here. I'm gonna give him password 12345. Then end this with a semicolon. Execute these, and I've already created a role. Now if I want to describe, I can check on my list. So I have my list here, MyDB. So if I want to describe the users, I'm gonna just, so I have user Chris, and this user Chris has no roles or list of roles that you. So if you want to assign roles to user Chris, I want to grant him all the privileges. So whatever I want to do here is grant Chris all privileges to the database. So the SQL language that I'm going to key in here is going to be grant the user Chris. No, I'm going to grant all on database. I'm going to grant all privileges on database MyDB to user Chris, to to actually Chris. I guess this will run correctly if I'm not. So what you need to do is I'm going to repeat the same grant user Chris to, I'm gonna enter these, and if I want to see if all privileges have been granted to Chris, I'm going to check just on describing the users. I'm going to describe user Chris. I'm going to describe user Chris and see if and this is the semicolon. Yeah, and now we have the role name and attributes and membership have all been granted to user Chris. So if you want to revoke these, if you want to delete a database table, you can be able to do this in the PowerShell. So for example, if you want to delete all these of which you don't want, you just have to key in you drop, just have to say drop database mydb. If I key in these and run, it's going to drop this database, but I don't want to do that because it's already an open database. So if I run these when it's still open, then the command is going to be revoked. So this is how you create assign privileges, revoke privileges. If I want to alter the password of Chris, I can be able to key in SQL like alter the user Chris password to probably, I'm going to alter the password to, I'm going to give him Fred. Click on this, end with the semicolon, click on enter. So I have altered the password to Chris, which is no longer Chris, but it has come to Fred. So with this PowerShell, you're able to do a lot of fetching of information and assigning of roles to a user if you're dealing with the security of your database. So that's it for today, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and share, like, comment if any. So I'm gonna have to go. Goodbye.